Welcome. Pak Guru Nababan, selamat datang. Pak Guru Nababan akan memberikan materi berkaitan dengan potential and distribution of Papuan terrestrial biodiversity. Charles Sapong memberikan materi berkaitan dengan the role of ecotourism and economy on climate change mitigation and adaptation in Africa. Dr. Carboner will speak about the ecology and ecosystem service of Papua. Colin Scamalans will talk about the role of biodiversity and ecotourism on climate change mitigation and adaptation. We have about maybe Pakar Moner, you have first time for. I think this is a telling story about what is your experience and maybe what is important of your experience in Papua and also another country in the world. So I think you have maybe 10 to 15 minutes, please.
Okay, selamat siang, Bapak, Ibu, hello everyone. I was told to give this talk in English, so I hope for those of you who don't speak English, I hope you can have translation, or if you understand English, fine. If not, I'll try to, maybe I can make a few summary points in Indonesian. The first thing I want to talk to you about is the information that's available about Papuan biodiversity. You may know about a 2-volume book called The Ecology of Papua. How many people have heard of the book or have read the book? Well, even better, any of you have heard of this 2-volume book? Raise your hand if you've heard of Ecology of Papua, 2 volumes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, not very many. This is one of the problems. It's only in English, and there's not even a summary available in Indonesian. The book was published in 2007, and it's part of a series that covers all of Indonesia, major areas of Indonesia. There's one on Kalimantan, one on Sumatra, one on Bali and the east, and then 2 volumes on the Indonesian seas, which is, I think, quite important. And then the last one was about Papua, 2 volumes on Papua. Prior to that, about 25 years before then, we have a man called Gresset, who published a book called The Biodiversity and Ecology of New Guinea. An excellent book, but that's very difficult. I'm sure very few of you have even heard of it, and I'm sure you haven't read it. Now, one of the problems with the ecology of Papua, it was written by 86 different authors, whereas all the other ecology books were written by a single author. So there's not much continuity in this ecology of Papua because it's so different authors. They don't necessarily follow each other. The book didn't have an overall editor. There were 2 guys who edited it, but I thought the editing was not very good. And one of the problems, which I find in many books about Papua, there are references to places and villages in the text that are not located on any maps. Now, I've done a number of books on Papua, and I try to make sure that every time I write the name of a village, the name of a place, Pegunungan, a mountain range, a river, I give the name. By the way, I did publish a book, but only in Indonesian, Keragaman Hayati Tanah Papua, The Ecology of Papua. But that was only published in Indonesian with UNIPA. I have that book and other books too, either on a DVD, which you can copy if you want, or on a flash drive if you have a computer, just plug it in the flash drive. Most of my books are on both of these outside things that you can plug into the computer or make a copy. So the Another problem with the ecology of Papua is that much of the material came from Papua New Guinea. It's been extremely difficult for outsiders, foreigners, to get research permits to come to Papua. This has been the case ever since the early 1960s. It's very difficult for LIPI to grant a research permit for foreigners. And what foreigners can get the funds to do their research, but for Indonesians, it's very difficult to get funds for research, to spend a couple of years, which is what it takes to do decent work in Papua. And also, academically, publishing is not very important in the Indonesian academic world. So there's not much incentive, neither financial nor advancement within the academic ranks for Indonesians to publish about Indonesia. Yet, this is what we need. We need Indonesians, we need Papuans to publish in Indonesian about Papua. And this is what we don't have. I've tried to remedy this with a number of books that I've written that are available in Indonesian. As I mentioned, if you don't have them, I'll give the titles to you. Mengenal Papua was the first one. Then Daratan Tinggi Papua, Pantai Selatan Papua, dan Pantai Utara Papua. I divided Papua into 4 major geographical areas, and all those books are in English, and they're in English and in Indonesian. That's available to you if you want after the talk, or come up and see me afterwards. There's already 2 gentlemen who've asked me to do this, so I'll be very happy to do it when possible. The Conservation International has done a number of studies about Papua, but here again, the publications, which are quite good, were in English only. So we have this problem of lack of material available in Indonesian. Now, a few Indonesians, academics, can read English, especially they can read their specialty. What is needed is something a bit simpler for the general public. And the things that I've written are written for the general public, like Keragaman Hayati Tanah Papua is much simpler, the language is simpler, the concepts are simpler than in the 2-volume Ecology of Papua. So, as I said, that's available in a flash drive or on a DVD. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, because I don't know how much time I have left, I'm trying to hurry through this so I don't step on anyone's time. I want to talk about eco and cultural tourism. I've been working for the last 20 years. I've worked in the Mimika Regency, Kabupaten Mimika, and I've developed a program for tourism to Chamorro villages. Usually we go to 2 different villages, and we have a program that includes the ecology mainly of the mangroves, because they live right next to the mangroves, somewhat in the sea, but the Chamorro don't go very far out to sea, so it's the ecology of a mangrove. Now, one of the problems I've had, and I've had many different problems, one of the problems is that it's very hard to find an English-speaking Chamorro, because I want to give up this program to be run by the Chamorro. But all the people that we've had are English speakers, so there's no, there are a few Chamorro who speak English, but they all work for the government, they all work for higher paid jobs. The problem with tourism, especially initially, is that there are not enough foreign guests to justify them leaving whatever else they're doing. So we have this huge problem that we need. It's one of these horse or cart. What comes first, the horse or the cart? Do we have infrastructure? Do we have English-speaking guides first, or do we start on promoting tourism, getting people here? Now, one of the problems that we have, and this is all true for all of Papua, is the fact that it's very expensive to get here. In the previous series of lectures, we've heard about the expense of coming to Papua. I have a very strong suggestion to make to the government. When you look at the map, we're directly south of Tokyo. So Tokyo, Seoul, northern China, directly to the north of us. If they could land in Biak, which was an international airport for quite a while, and then the flights could go straight to Australia. This way, we could bring any number of tourists from Japan, from Korea, from northern China. We could bring them to Papua. Now, At the beginning, of course, the publicity has to be done, because all the publicity so far, any publicity, is mainly European. When you look at the tourists that come to Papua, almost all of them are European. There's a few Japanese. There are a few Japanese, but as far as I know, the only Chinese I've met are businessmen, people who set up palm oil plantations or work in the oil industry or whatever. So as far as tourists, it's not known. In China, there's nothing known about tourism in Papua. They all go to Bali, of course, or a few other places. So there has to be publicity, but this flight, I think, would not be so difficult to open between the northern Asia, if you want to call Tokyo northern Asia, part of China and Korea, coming to Biak. Biak was an international airport, as you know, and then from Biak going on to northern Australia. So this, what I mentioned to you earlier, it's expensive. Maybe this flight would be cheaper, I don't know. I don't know how to bring down the cost of flights. Like for my area, for Tunica, we have a flight once a day from Bali, but it's only by Garuda, and it's quite expensive. So you either pay that flight or you don't come. So if there could be more competition, if Lion Air or some other airlines would be given permission to fly from Bali to Tunica, the flight is always full. So it's not a matter of not having enough people for the flight. So the fact that it's very expensive from Bali, it's almost as expensive as from Bali to Jakarta. All of this was brought out earlier in the previous set of discussions about how difficult and expensive it is to come to Papua. The other problem that I've seen a lot of foreigners they question the Surat Jalan. They wonder why is a Surat Jalan necessary. They think a Surat Jalan necessary because Papua is unsafe. There may be a very few areas of Papua unsafe. The road between Tirong and Mulia, I would not recommend for anyone, whether they're Indonesians or Papuans. It's an area where you have the most activity, anti-whatever activity. But as far as I know, all the other areas are safe, and certainly the Mimika area is safe, the Valley is safe. So almost all of, so I think if the government could only require a Surat Jalan for the parts that are unsafe, as opposed to all of Papua. A lot of people have this question, why do we need a Surat Jalan? We don't need a Surat Jalan to anywhere else in Indonesia. Why do we need a Surat Jalan to Papua? The biodiversity that I've dealt with, that I give to the visitors, involves the mangroves. And I've written about the mangroves. It's, 5 minutes, okay. Okay, so will there be question time at the end, or do we do questions during my 15 minutes? Pertanyaan dalam 15 menit atau waktu selesai semua? Kalau ada pertanyaan dari tamu-tamu kita, waktu semua selesai, bukan dari 15 menit. Okay. So I've got 5 more minutes of live feed. Okay. All of my information, of course, came from the Chamorro. Now, one of the huge problems that I've seen in ecotourism is identifying the vegetation. You know, the Chamorro, it's very easy for the Chamorro to tell me, oh, that's a Ouagadougou tree, and we use it for making canoes. Mucho gusto, as we say in Spanish. That's very good. But we need the scientific name. Fortunately, I was able to identify about 140 different plants, both in the mangroves and the tropical rainforest that's next to the mangroves. And there was an old Papuan who was trained in botany by the Dutch. So we went around with some Chamorro and this older Papuan gentleman. We did know the scientific names. So I had the scientific names and the uses of about 140 different trees and plants that the Chamorro actually used and what they use them for. There's also a study done by Atmajaya about only the medicinal plants that the Chamorro use. So there is some information available, which I think visitors, I don't like to call them tourists, when they get this far and they get interested in the biodiversity. I call them visitors and not tourists. There's a lot of information that can be imparted to them. Now, this information, of course, I had to check because even though I believe this older gentleman, there's a man called Dr. Bob Johns of Kew Gardens in England, who is the world's leading expert on the plants of Papua. And he checked my list, the scientific names, of course, and 2 of them he took off because he said those plants just don't exist in your area. Fine, so I took them off. They're mistakes. But all the others, he said, do exist in the Mimika area. So I'm pretty confident that I have these 140 plants. And I think people will be interested to know that this particular tree is a kind of ironwood tree, because the problem with common names also is that the same common name applies to a number of different species. This particular type of tree is used for this particular thing by the tomorrow. So it's not only a question of identifying the vegetation, it's also its use for the local people. What do the local people use this particular plant or tree for? As far as animals are concerned, this is much easier to identify them. To see animals is much more difficult. Most animals, especially mammals, are nocturnal. So in order to see mammals, you have to go out at night. And not many even visitors, not people who are too interested. You have to be a mammalogist or awfully interested to go out, especially in the rain with a flashlight, and look around for couscous or look around for a tree kangaroo, which are around, and the Komodo can find them. But very few people are willing to traipse in the jungle, and they're not found near the villages either. That's another problem, because the people have hunted them out. So, but names of animals, it's easy. We have a number of books on mammals, we have books on reptiles, we have books on butterflies, we have books on many different species in the Mimika area for sure. Because Freeport has published a series of books on different animal species, so these are easy to find and to identify which animal in the English language with an English common name. I think I'm about done with my life here. Terima kasih, thank you.